My name is Mary Maslowski. I'm the chairperson of the Harwich Historic District and Historical Commission. We're going to call to order the meeting for Wednesday, February 20th, 2019 at 6 p.m. here in the Griffin Room at Town Hall at 732 Main Street. As required by law, we are notifying you that the town may audio or video record the meeting. If any person intends to either audio or video record the meeting, we ask that you let the chair know at this time. Hearing none, I'd like to just start with a roll call.
Brendan Lowney.
Julia Aldridge.
Jean Steiner.
Angelo Kyriakides.
So I'd like to welcome Angelo. It is his first meeting as a new member of the board.
Thank you.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the fun. So we will start, the first thing on our agenda is a continuation of a public hearing, which is HH 2019-01. It's a certificate of appropriateness, which was received for 724 Main Street, identified as Verizon, map 41, parcel B8-1 in the C-V zone in the Harwich Center Historic District. The application proposes to upgrade existing generators, install new roof-mounted AC unit, and surround the flat roof with a white vinyl 3.5-foot fence, modernize and replace existing west elevation louver, and install an 8-foot cedar fence, surround and replace the exhaust stack. The application is pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40C, Section 6, and the Code of the Town of Harwich, Chapter 131, Historic Preservation, Article 1. Donald Ambrosio, Nelson Architects is applicant for the owner, 9X New England Telephone and Telegraph Company. Please come forward and state your name for the record again, please.
Donald Ambrosio, on behalf of Verizon.
Welcome again. Thanks for coming back.
Thank you for having me again.
So just to
Thank you.
give a brief overview.
Sure. I don't, but thank you. I was here a month ago, and we were, Verizon next door is the telephone equipment building, 724 Main Street, which is just on the other side of the building next door. The building's an equipment building where all the telephone service comes in, goes through computer equipment and wires, and then goes out, and you'll see the technicians' trucks coming in and out there to sort of service the various things. As part of Verizon's infrastructure, because 911 and things like that go through the building, every Verizon telephone building in every town has a generator backup, and actually a backup to the generator backup. But right now there's an existing generator on the first floor of the building, the ground floor of the building, and the generator, if you're facing Main Street, if you're facing the building from Main Street, it's on the left-hand side of the building. And right now there's just a louver there, and we're going to be replacing the generator inside the building, so you wouldn't see the generator. But we have to, in order for the air to blow out, we have to enlarge the louver a little bit, but actually we're going to enlarge it down, so it wouldn't be any taller. So in this little elevation, that's actually the existing louver, and we're just making it lower. But to comply with Mass DEP regulations, we have to attenuate these. We have to bring the sound down so that it's not louder than 10 decibels over ambient, which actually will be quite significantly quieter than what's there now. But because we have to do that, we have to do everything we need to do to make that happen. And the new generator is quieter, but in order to get it down to those levels, we talked last time that we're going to build a fence just outside that. It'll be an 8-foot high fence. It would just basically surround this louver. The inside of the fence would be lined with an acoustical baffle that you wouldn't see. And it would just be basically a big 8-foot high fence that would sort of enclose that louver as kind of just a big fence. What we talked about last time is I originally proposed that we would just make it a cedar and either leave it to weather, but when we talked about it, what would be more appropriate would be a white fence that had more of a, historic look to the town. So what we've done is we've changed the detail of the fence to be 8-foot high, still a wood fence. We're not changing it to any other material, but we would paint it white to be the same white that's already on the outside of the building, on the corner board and all the existing. So the louver was going to be white. It'll just be lower. You wouldn't see it actually. We'll just paint the fence to match that. On the posts of the fence, we'll have like a little folio cap just to make a nice touch at the top, vertical boards, and then some horizontals just below the cap and at the bottom to give it kind of a nice, nicer appearance. So that was the first thing we talked about last time. We had some discussion about whether we needed the fence or not, and we need the fence to comply with the DEP. So if that's okay with everybody, we would proceed that way. The second thing we talked about was on the roof of the building, we need to do some air conditioning and also have an intake duct that come out that actually serves the generator that's downstairs. And when we first met last time, this is the roof plan, and this is Main Street. And in the front of Main Street, there's a pitch roof with the two end gables. So the pitch roof is actually quite higher than the lower roof in the back. So all this equipment is in the back. There's actually three existing condensers in the back. Last time we came, we had showed the HVAC unit closer to this edge because of the way we were going to bring the ducts up, and because of the way the structural engineer wanted to frame it. So when we had our last meeting, I was proposing that we put a little wood decorative fence around the roof, but it seemed to be the consensus that really prefer not to. Instead, what was asked is that we try to put this in the middle of the roof. So we had a meeting with the structural engineer and the mechanical engineer, and we figured out a way for it to work. So he'll would basically center it on the roof, so it would be actually directly behind this front pitch. You wouldn't even see it from the street. And then that would give us better sight lines from the sides. It'd be about as distant as you can get in order to see it. So before it was about right here, and we basically centered it in the back of the roof. You have other pieces of equipment up there now that are basically centered on the roof, so it really wouldn't be any worse than what's there now. It'll just be one more piece. Again, you can't really see it from the street because of the gables on the roof. What we did do is we drew some elevations to try to give you a sense of what, I don't frankly know if anybody notices it from the parking lot, but when you look carefully, you can see, gray mechanical equipment up there. It's kind of in the distance. So we would have another one that would be kind of closer to the front, but again, not visible at all actually from the street. So we drew these elevations. We are going to move one condenser just back a little bit because we have to sit this thing on a piece of steel because the roof's made out of concrete plank, which can't support it. So we figured out how to do it, but we have to move a little condenser about 2 feet back. But otherwise, from the elevations, you're just going to see pretty much what you see now, but just one more of them. I drew an elevation with some sight lines to try to give a sense of, I'm not sure if you can see that from here, but from the front of the building, you really can't see the back roof at all. And then as you're driving around the side because of the gables on Main Street, you really can't see much. When you're actually here in the parking lot, you can see it. So just drawing some sort of lines of sight, you'd have to be 80 feet back in order to even see the top of the unit. And so actually when I parked my car, I was kind of saying, am I right about that? So actually when you're in the back, you can see the units about halfway down from the middle of the parking lot. So it'll be basically pretty much what you see now. But again, you can't really see it from the street. I do agree that moving it to the middle of the roof has made a big difference in terms of absolutely not being able to see it from Main Street. So Verizon's good with that. We made it work, and we'll just eliminate the fence. And that's really what we're proposing as the final plan. Is there any questions, or I know you weren't here last time.
My only question for you with respect to the fence, is there something that we could do slightly more decorative than the cedar fence
In terms of appearance?
for the louvered side?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what we do have to do is it has to be like solid. In other words, we can't have any gaps.
Tongue engraved.
Well, we've actually designed these so that you'll see like a 5-inch nominal board, series of boards, but they have to be close together, and then we line the inside with plywood. Now, we could leave a little bit of a gap of a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch because we have plywood on the inside. So if you wanted to see it look more like something vertical with some gaps, but what we can't do is have something with balusters that's round because it doesn't serve the purpose. And what we were going to do is at the bottom we would have a horizontal piece of trim that would be, say, 5.5 inches high.
Mhm.
And at the top, have a band horizontally, and then the posts would have the little colonial caps on them every 6 feet, I
Okay.
think it is. So that's what we thought made it kind of, gave it that.
Can they landscape the street side of the fence to soften the fence?
We can, we could, right now, I think there's a rhododendron there now.
Yeah.
And we're gonna maintain that, or we can actually move it if it wants to be closer to the street a little bit, or plant a new one next to it. So right now, there's a couple rhododendrons, we could add, something else too, if you'd like. Verizon's very open to that, every time we do
Yeah,
these projects, they're very open to it.
Any landscape screening would help soften that fence, its
Mhm.
appearance.
Okay,
And I think the board should be tighter together, not apart, only
No, no,
because they're
no.
gonna open anyways, because they would.
right,
They're gonna open over time, so,
right, so there would be just a slight
yeah.
there, and they'd be
Just for-
painted white.
Just for clarification, at the last meeting, we had talked about something other than a standard
Yeah.
stockade.
Yeah.
On a fence, so,
Well, it's not gonna have points, it's gonna have a cap on it and everything else.
Yeah.
It's a 1x6 cap and a top cap.
A top cap and a horizontal drip
Yeah.
cap, and
Sure.
then the posts would have the colonial caps
Sure.
on them.
great.
I have a question also about the new vent in the front. What color is that vent? Is it,
Oh, the exhaust?
yes,
Well, right now, the one that's there probably has a little rust on it. That's coming out.
Mhm.
So the new one we would put in, we can actually paint it black.
a flat black?
Yeah,
Yeah, good, being less obtrusive.
so that's typically what I do, is that we specify a high-temperature paint so that it doesn't bubble off or anything.
Okay.
And we just paint it black. But in terms of the plantings, though, Verizon, we did talk about either relocating a rhododendron or putting a new one, so there could be two, on the street side of that big the 8-foot
Yeah.
fence, if that helps a little bit.
Well, I think anything they do along the fence, the length of that fence, would soften its appearance to the street.
You can definitely do that.
And that Verizon maintains that at a level, doesn't let it overgrow and get crazy?
Well, they try to, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think last time I was here and I took pictures, it didn't look too bad in terms of how they're landscaping it, but,
Okay,
yeah, they basically will send people here to mow grass and
sure.
trim things, yes.
Other questions from members of the board? Brendan?
No, just really to talk to Angela's point about the fence. I think I agree with, as the fence dries out and shrinks, you'll have those gaps.
Right.
So that's why I mentioned the tongue and groove, where even if it did separate, you would never see through it or see the plywood on the other side. And then on the rails and stiles, you're thinking this will almost look like a recessed paneled look?
Yeah, absolutely.
Will the backside of the plywood be painted black, so when they do open up, it'll be a negative?
That's why if you do the tongue and groove, you wouldn't have that.
You wouldn't have
It's
that.
kind of like on an outdoor
Sure.
shower.
Sure.
You'll see the tongue and groove, you
Yep.
wouldn't be able to see through
Sure.
an outdoor shower. So,
Oh,
We
sorry.
can actually do that, yeah.
yeah, that would be ideal.
Okay.
Yeah, but the overall appearance, everything would be painted
Okay.
white, so.
With the backside, so the backside's got the plywood on it, so that's okay.
It's gonna have plywood, and then we're gonna adhere some acoustic panels that you won't see, but
Makes
they'll be
sense.
back there.
That'll take the sound of the exhaust,
Yeah, and it'll absorb it.
soften it.
to get it down. So they get kind of technical about the acoustics, so
Sure,
the state's a little hard on them, so.
okay.
Did we get any revised plans, or are the ones that you have just on your boards, the ones that,
These are what I printed up to bring tonight. and
Okay.
I didn't know what you needed in terms of revised plans, but we can get those to you.
so if you could, we'd just need the revisions that match the information that you've
Yeah,
presented
it'd literally
tonight,
be
if you
these, and I
could.
guess I could just put a rhododendron on it, and then, we need all the copies that we originally sent, like, I forget what it was.
Yeah, so we've got just pretty much the same set, just revised with the new drawings,
Okay,
particularly for,
how many
the
copies?
roof. Just one for the file is fine.
Oh, I have one, okay, it's
All
easy.
right. Jean, any
No, I
questions?
just wanted to say thank you for listening last month.
Oh, I appreciate your
It's
input.
really nice to
Yeah.
hear that our suggestions were taken into consideration, so.
Oh, You're
thanks.
welcome, yeah.
And Julie, did you have anything?
No, I was actually gonna say what Jean said, it was nice that, get rid of the fence up top and everything, and it's
It's gonna look good.
a more subtle appearance.
So we are still in a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak or comment? Any questions? Okay, hearing none, then the chair would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, so motion's made by Mrs. Steiner, moved by Mr. Kyriakides.
Very good.
Am I close?
Very
Okay.
good.
The microphones.
Spoken like a true Grecophile.
So we have a motion is made and seconded on the floor to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, we are 5-0. And then the chair would entertain a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness for the plans as presented tonight with, from Verizon, with the caveat that the fence will be a tongue and groove fence with the details as discussed, and the,
Did you want to add the rhododendron in front of the fence?
sure, the plantings are an additional rhododendron in front of the fence, and that the roof-mounted equipment will be as shown in the new plans that you'll be,
That's right.
that you'll provide a copy to.
And the vent painted black.
And
The
the,
exhaust vent painted black.
and the exhaust vent painted black.
Yes.
Does that
That's it.
capture it? Okay, the chair will entertain that motion.
I have to repeat all that?
No. So moved?
So
So moved.
So motion's made by Mrs. Eldridge. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Lowney, seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much. If you could just provide them with the revised plans, and then we'll get the decision.
Great.
Okay?
very much.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on our agenda is a discussion, an informal discussion with Mr. Paul Simard, owner of 718 Main Street.
It's me, I'm right next door to the Verizon.
All right, thank you.
We're gonna clean up the whole
So
street.
please take a seat and,
I was gonna give you something.
oh, okay, great. Well, you can-
I just bought the apartment building. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but it's in pretty poor condition. I mean, it's not verging on being a dump. So I'm gonna replace an awful lot of the outside. I plan on replacing the roof, same exact thing that's there. All of the corner boards, the soffits are rotted right through. There's serious rotting on almost everything. So I'm gonna be replacing all that right away. The cedar shingle siding on the entire building is very poor. Some places have to be replaced right away. So I'll either be doing at least 50% of it now and the other 50% later, or I may just do it all right now. It needs all new gutters. You have downspouts without gutters and gutters without downspouts. They've fallen off over the years, and it's just been the most poorly maintained property I've ever seen. The fifth item are the windows, and that's what I'm here to talk about tonight. There are 229 windows in the building, and as you know, windows are expensive, so I don't want to make any mistakes. I'm not sure if I'm going to replace them yet. A lot of the window sills are rotted right through. I mean, there's no window sill, they're just totally rotted. Some of the window panes, I don't know what's keeping them in there now. And all the casing around it, a lot of them is rotting. And can I give you some
Sure.
idea? And I'm just looking for guidance tonight. This is, I messed one of these up, by the way. I'm trying to give you an orientation of the building. One side is made, the building is shaped like a donut or a horseshoe. And the outside is,
Thank you.
I give you all the pictures of the windows. And you can get a good idea of what is going on here.
thank you.
I mean, the windows on the building actually look pretty good, and the pictures, I look good in pictures too sometimes, but I mean, it's really good. It's really bad. So the white window in the front, that's the front of the building. The front of the building is all cardboard, white cardboard. The rest of the building is all cedar, and I think it was built in two parts. The building is 1950.
If you could just sit down so that we can hear you through the
Yeah.
microphone. Thank you.
Oh, okay, okay. I think the building was built in 1955. And what I'm hoping to do, if I replace the windows, there are a lot of different things you can do. You can put windows with no mullions, or you can put windows with all mullions, without casing, or with casing. And I know the Historical Commission wants, is very strict on windows, so I imagine the front of the building, you'd want to have it stay exactly as it is. I can save money on the rest of the windows by not putting casing around, having the shingles go all the way across. Because if I replace the windows, you gotta take out the casing on the outside and the inside. I would not be putting replacement windows, I'd be putting what they call new construction windows. They're better and they should last longer, and so it's a better, you can insulate around them and everything else. So my question to you is, there's 5 different types of windows, and if you look at the 5 pictures, one is almost square, one is long, one is a triple window, and there are 2 double windows. What are the guidelines as far as replacing windows in first of all, I didn't know the building was in a historic district, but surprise, surprise. What are the guidelines for replacing windows in a historic district?
So everything is gonna have to come before us under a certificate of appropriateness.
Okay.
So, this board does have say with respect to the look and feel of, the outside of the building, anything that can be seen from the streetscape, anything that can be seen from, another public street, a public park, a public parking lot. So that look and feel, is all part of what this board will
Okay.
review on your formal application.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think from Main Street, really the only part you can see are those few buildings up front. I can't remember seeing any of the other buildings from any other perspective, but I
You
don't
know
know
why?
that
I mean, the shrubbery is so overgrown that you can't see it.
Yeah,
And of course, I'm gonna change that at some point too, and it's just, there's trees and bushes touching against the buildings and everything else, so it's so overgrown, it's hard to see. I mean, the present owner's got a sign there, and there's 2 bushes have grown and almost covered the sign, so I don't know why he's doing that. So do I understand, so you'd have more leeway on the inside of the donut than you would on the outside? In other words, you want the outside to look the way it looks now,
So
but you
the-
might let me do windows without the panes or whatever on the inside?
So you may be able to do that. Again, it's all gonna be a part of the certificate of appropriateness.
Okay.
So the board, when it comes before us, the people that are here will be able to review that, and
Okay.
we review primarily the streetscape, but particularly the front, and particularly what you're gonna see from Main Street. The board will pay significant attention to the look and feel of those
Okay.
windows. Brendan, did you have something to?
No, I'm just listening, but
So, so really, as far as when you're doing the certificate of appropriateness, I would suggest that you have some options, or you have the ones that you want to look at, that you want for particularly the front, so that we can see what it looks like
Okay,
and review it.
okay. I have one more question.
Sure.
can I
Can I
just add something?
come up here
Or
again?
Jean.
To what Mary just said, I don't know if you've gotten if you go to Elaine Banta in the planning office, she can probably give you a copy of the lists of the historic district kind of requirements or things you should be thinking about. Like, they usually say, if the windows are wood, you replace them with wood, or you repair the wood, which would be in the front again. This is a 1950s house, it may not be all wood. I don't
Windows
know,
are
and they may have
65
been-
years
yeah,
old.
and they may have
To
been,
repair
the
those.
original windows may
yeah.
have, may be long gone too.
If
don't
I had to
know.
replace them, I mean, you can use wooden windows, but if I had to replace them with windows, it's out of question. I would just patch these up. I mean, wooden windows are they're double or triple the cost of the new, they call them, I forget the material they call them, but they look exactly like wood. You can't tell the difference. They have all them. And I've got pictures of them right here. They look great. And I built a new home in Harwich 6 years ago, and that's what I used. And I've got it's a very, well-finished house. I mean, it's a very traditional, and that's what I use. That's what everybody uses right now. I mean, to use wood windows, You're just asking, I think, for the same kind of problems again.
These look to be single pane glass with a storm window on it.
I'm sorry?
These appear to be
Yeah.
single pane glass
Yeah,
with a storm
yes.
window.
Yes,
Triple
exactly.
track on it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, but the building is not historical, it just happens to be in a historical district.
yes.
And I think that the facade and the elevation that you face into the district
Yeah.
is more critical to us when we review it.
Yeah.
What you do inboard,
Look, can I just show you one more thing?
is a concern to us, but not
Okay.
overwhelming.
These are the windows I'm looking at. They have, just like, they look exactly like the windows that you have there. They're
They're 8/8.
these are 8/8. And then, the only difference between all of the windows, I would hope that you'd give me a break on this one, is this window here, the triple window here. This triple window.
Mhm.
Okay? This one here has 7 lights by 6 lights. The ones that have 8 lights by 6 lights. There's one row of lights, that's all. If I was to try to get the same thing on these windows, it would be a very big, it'd be custom made. If you count the lights, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And this one only has, but there's 6 down, but this one has only 7 across. Oops, I'm sorry.
Is that on the street side of the building?
There's some
It is,
all
it's
over
on
the
the
place.
front.
Oh, they are.
I don't even think you, if I hadn't told you, you probably wouldn't have caught that unless you go out there and count. If you look at that window, it looks the same.
So if you could just step back so that we can hear you.
Yeah.
So again, we can't make, we can give you guidance. We can tell you that it is in the historic district. There is going to be a need for us to see the look and feel.
Okay,
So as far as giving you a blessing on any particular window, at this point, we can't do that. We can't do that until an application comes
Okay.
in. It has to go through the full public hearing process so that neighbors and abutters have to get notified, and we'll hold the public hearing. There are guidelines for the historic district. I believe they are online on the Harwich website. And if you have difficulty finding them, then as Jean had stated, Elaine Banta up here in the building department and planning office can provide you a copy of those.
okay.
That'll give you some sense of what we look for in the historic district.
Okay,
All right?
okay.
Anything else?
Very good. That'll be it. That's
Any
it.
other questions from members of the board? Comments?
I think existing conditions, elevation, and how you propose the new windows to look, and the shutters and everything else, just the
Yeah.
elevation.
The shutters, there's only shutters in the front.
Yeah, but we want to see shutters in the front
They
then.
are the cheapest plastic shutters you've ever seen.
Yeah,
I think they're nailed on. I mean,
Yeah,
it's.
they
a
appear to
little
be.
embarrassing. But I will not touch, I don't think I'm gonna touch the shutters. There's no other shutters any other place in the building. But, everything I'm gonna do, except for even the windows, is gonna look exactly the same.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
we need to see an elevation, I think, of that. We'll need to see an elevation of it, a drawing of the front, of how it is now and how it is going to look.
You want a drawing? I mean,
Well,
I'm a single, I'm not a fancy developer. I don't develop things. I mean, I guess I could go to an architect, ask him to do a drawing. But I can show you the windows, and I don't think they'll look exactly the same.
So pretty much what you're doing on the certificate of appropriateness is providing us with pictures, images, a plan, whatever you can to show us what
Okay.
what it's going to look like, and what you're proposing, what changes you're proposing to make
Yep.
to the building. Because it's in the historic district,
Okay.
we need to see what that final look is going to be, in order for us to make a decision.
By the way, I don't need anything except for a building permit to replace the roof or the corner boards and the eaves and soffits. They're gonna be exactly the same.
But it's in the historic district, so anything that's gonna be on there is subject to a certificate of appropriateness from this board before your building permit.
Even the roof?
Before you, correct, before your building permit. Mhm.
I was
Because
under the
it's in
impression
this-
if it didn't change anything, I didn't have, because I was gonna start the roof next week. I was under the impression that
You
in
would still
fact,
need an
someone told me.
express permit by the building department at a minimum, and if it's a commercial property, it could be a little more involved, but you would have to check with the building department.
Yes, what?
You'd have to check with the building department.
Yeah,
You
okay.
would definitely need, whether it be a full permit, because it's commercial, or they could issue the express permit. I believe they can do the express permit.
So like for like, we are in the historic district, so that's the issue you're facing with the certificate of appropriateness.
So they'll be able to guide me pretty well in the
They
building
will.
department?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay,
They will.
okay,
Okay,
okay, thank you.
thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You can have the pictures too.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So the next item we have on the agenda is 99 Riverside Drive in West Harwich. It's a request from owner Jeffrey Lang to remove the property from the 100-year list. Hello, please state your name for the record.
Jeffrey Lang.
Michelle Singleton with McPeak Associates.
Great.
Yeah, we were just surprised when our building permit application came back and said, oh, we need to be in front of the Historic Commission for the 100 year. And on the town assessor's office card, we're there at 1930. Is when the house was built. So it was kind of like, we don't believe we should be on it. And if we should have been, in 2008, they totally rebuilt the whole house, so there's really nothing historically left anyhow.
So could we see a
Yes.
copy of the property card? That'd be great, thanks. We'll pass it along. So we have recently updated the list.
When did you see it?
You showed it to me.
Oh, right.
So right here, where is it?
30.
Year belts.
Where's the original bills? Why can I not see it? Oh, right there.
Got that kind of.
It's on the building, it says year built 1930.
Yeah, we got it right away.
I gave you the unhighlighted one,
Very
sorry.
That's okay. It's okay on this one on the far left-hand side. Yeah, it says 1930. So, thank you. So same one. So this has happened to us on a couple of occasions. We've had buildings that, we see the old and the new from 2008. Are
Yeah.
those the two pictures? That was the old. I see that. Okay, so, to the members of the board, we have seen this before, unfortunately, where there are homes that are on our 100-year list, and this, appears to say that the original house, which isn't even there clearly, was built in 1930, and, if you look at the two different homes, completely different. So this is the current property card.
Oh,
This
yeah.
must have been this must be the house that replaced that,
Yeah.
correct?
No, I think that's the boathouse.
There's the
Is that the
boathouse.
boathouse? Oh,
House
sorry.
Down on the river.
Down on the river,
And
okay.
it's even like a 1994
And that too, and that property card still says,
boathouse. It's like-
it does actually
Yeah.
say 1994.
Yeah.
Then what's the third piece?
Oh, it's the guest house on the property.
That's the
also
guest
built in
house.
the-
All right,
But
that's
it's-
what I was
Yeah,
looking
there
at.
you go.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking at, sorry. So we have a boathouse that does say circa 1994, and we have the guest house and the main house, which both show 1930s. So we're only in 2019. So,
I tried doing the math.
Right now, here we are.
We could come back and.
so, I'll be quite blunt. My feeling on this is we've had to make this correction on a few occasions on the 100-year list. But my personal opinion is that, we certainly have relied on our assessors' property cards with other homes, and in this instance, I don't see a reason not to rely on it in this instance. But I'll open it to my board members for comment.
No, I think we have to be consistent, and I think if we go by the appraiser, is it
Property
the
card.
appraiser or the property tax one?
The property cards from
Property
the assessor's
tax,
office.
right,
Yeah.
from the appraiser, so, I mean, I think that's what we have to do. It
That's what we
makes
have
more
to go by.
sense, Yeah.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, then the chair would entertain a motion to remove the the property at 99 Riverside Drive in West Harwich from the 100-year list, which ultimately means that it is not today subject to the demolition delay bylaw. Do I have that motion?
Make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Only because you're an alternate, I'm going to ask for somebody else to make the main motion.
Fine.
Okay, I'll make the
So Jean will make the main
Mhm.
motion. And Angela was seconded. Are there any further comments, questions?
None.
Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none. Motion carries. We will let the building department know that you are good to go forward with your building permit application.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
And I think you'll
welcome.
be pleased with what it looks like anyhow, but.
Right.
Thanks
Thank
very much.
Good luck.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
This evening.
Have a good evening.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the January 16th, 2019 minutes. If there are no comments, the chair would entertain a motion to accept and place them on file.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Steiner has made the motion. Mr. Lowney has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion carries. We have a zoning board of appeals agenda in our packet this evening. If there's anything in here that this board wishes to comment on, back to the zoning board of appeals. Looks like there's just a special permit to construct a three-season porch addition at 12 Lincoln Village Road, and then a special permit deck onto a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling at
Cross Street?
63 Sisson Road.
No, it's at 6 Cross Street.
I'm sorry, it's where?
I think the
6 Cross Street, you are correct.
63 Sisson is the,
Yep, is the name of the LLC, so 6 Cross Street. Down here in Harwich Port then, I would think. So if the board doesn't see any reason to comment back to the zoning board of appeals, we can entertain a motion to accept and place their agenda on file.
I should not be making motions.
That's okay.
Okay.
A motion?
Yes, motion.
Brendan has made the motion to accept and place the ZBA agenda on file. Is there a second?
Second.
Jean Steiner has made the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing none in opposition, motion carries. Now, we have something odd in our file. It is a communication from architects on behalf of Mass DOT for signage. You should have gotten a package from Mass DOT. Do you not?
nope.
I didn't.
I do have a second packet.
Still up early.
Okay. So let's put that aside for now, and
Yeah, I did see
I
that.
kind of went out of order apparently. Here, it's just a correspondence about plans. I'll pass it around for you to see. I don't think there's really anything for us to do. I think we are on a blanket notice for local boards and commissions for signage that is going down around signage and I think cameras that are going around the highway. And none of the plans,
This is on Route 6.
yes, none of the plans seem to be anywhere near us in the historic district.
No.
But I'll pass that around for you folks to see.
Once they sent it. I mean, it's always good to get that information.
It is.
Ahead of when the thing happens, right?
It is. None of them seem to be near us or really relevant to us, as the case may be.
It's all on Route 6 all highway.
My arms aren't that long. Julie?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Wasn't paying attention.
So, this is go further.
This is off Cape, right?
Yeah, this is Rock
Okay.
Cave.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, one more. Hold on.
At exit 11, yeah.
It's gonna get busier down in my end of town.
There you go. So that was item number 6, actually, on our agenda. I would recommend that we just make a motion to accept and place the correspondence on file.
I so move.
Mrs. Steiner has made the motion.
I'll second.
Mrs. Eldridge has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing any in opposition, hearing none, motion carries. I'm going to circle back to number 5 because I skipped over it. We are still holding money from the Community Preservation Commission from a few years ago. It was originally intended to be an update of, a further update of the list,
100-year list.
the 100-year list. It was originally proposed that we would do a deeper dive into cluster areas where there were 3 or more homes on the list. That being said, we've had discussions at this board about the fact that we have a number of properties on the 100-year list that we keep removing because they seem to not be old enough with the deed research. So being that we are still in custody of those funds, we are required by CPC to give a status update every 6 months. We really haven't done anything with that money. We haven't been in a position to kind of put a proposal together in order to do something else with the money. So we have to go the beginning of March with a report on what we've done, and I'm not so sure they're going to let us keep that money. If they rescind the money, then I would suggest that we go back with a new application for next fall with kind of what a real plan is moving forward with things that we'd like to do. If we still feel we need to continue to update that list, or if we want to kind of keep attacking it the way we have been with as an issue comes up.
How did the determination of those 100-year structures get
So we
developed?
had, through CPC funds, we had hired a consultant to do a survey, a townwide survey on properties and determine which ones were 100 years of age or older. So she had done a deep dive of research into them, and we have a 4-volume set of kind of the information with the properties, and but that being said, it didn't really include deed research or kind of property record research. So sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. And what we found is that, sometimes it's because a garage was built in the 40s, but, the house was older.
Sure.
Sometimes it is, we had, the one that comes to mind is 19 Schoolhouse, which looked older than it actually was. It wasn't built until the 40s or the 50s. So deed research actually showed us that there was a deed that transferred a parcel of land, and then a parcel of land with a house thereon, and a mortgage deed. So we've been able to kind of, when applicants have come in and they've given us this evidence, we've been able to say, yeah, you're right, it's not a
Not
100-year-old
100
house. And therefore, we really don't have the jurisdiction over it, on the demolition delay. But I just wanted to kind of get thoughts from the board with respect to.
Have we charged this consultant to do any more?
So there was a request for proposals that went out for that original list.
Yeah.
So that's done and paid for. We never really went out with a request for proposals on the second project, and now that money is probably about 3 years old, I'd say.
Yeah, and
that's
I think we talked also about maybe using that funding to do something to support the West Harwich initiative.
Mhm.
Um,
Which we can't do.
Yeah, because it's sort of a conflict of interest.
Well,
isn't it?
it's really the fact that it's CPC granted the money based on an application. So they would have to
Oh,
either let us revise that application, which more likely they're going to say, no, we're going to take the money back, and then you're going to.
Use the funds a different way than
Could-
what we
Right.
Was
originally-
one of the, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry,
Can I
go
just
ahead.
finish?
Yeah.
One of the things, I was here when they were doing that, when Miranda did that research. Did we talk at one point, though, about maybe going back to the list and doing some deed research?
We did.
And maybe not having to hire such an expensive consultant, but be able to go in and get, I don't know, someone from the college or something.
So would have to put a proposal together for
Right.
somebody to kind of figure out how many properties there are, say,
Or maybe how many there are.
or how much per property, and how many think we could do.
I was thinking maybe just going to the list, because the example of 99 Riverside Drive, that's an easy one, 1930, why is it on the list? Just go over the list we have now to prevent maybe that from happening.
Yeah.
And then pull out the 5 that might be very obvious, 1940, 1930, and then research those, and not really do a whole blanket and just go through the town again, but let's try to fix what we have on record. So,
Right.
so maybe that will resolve that.
Right, what she did, I think, was strictly drive-by. It was.
Oh, my
to-
gosh.
Well, I mean,
Drive-by.
that drive-by is maybe,
She did it by look.
She did it strictly by look, but
Yeah.
she's
What was the
a
qualifications of this
preservation.
person? An archaeologist?
She's a preservation specialist, she's
yeah.
also an attorney, so.
Yeah.
I mean,
Qualified.
Yeah, she's
Qualified.
qualified. She was
Eminently qualified.
Very qualified to do it. But I think that, it's almost a clerical thing to go back and check against the deeds, it would seem to me. If there weren't that many, I don't know, she did 200 houses, or she didn't do maybe 400? It
I
wasn't
I don't know the
huge
number.
So she didn't comb the whole town of
Right,
Harwich
and
then?
some of the things I think had been done in a prior survey, like maybe 30 or 40
Oh,
years
sure.
ago. But maybe to your point, to just clean it up and match each of those against the
Yeah, I mean, even for
the
a resident,
100-year list.
just going through getting the permit process, to have that obstacle, being a
It
builder.
delays
just-
you, yeah.
Yeah, just you want people to have a great experience when they come to the building department, so I think that's important.
Do you want us to do the research? I mean, it's not that hard to go into the property records.
So
Search.
it's a matter of we have, I don't know that we will be able to use the funds that we have currently to kind of do, I think, what we think is probably the best next step for us, because of the way the application was originally put in, which I want to say it was 2016, maybe?
So it was for that
Or
purpose.
14?
The money was for that purpose.
It was specifically to do a deeper dive into clusters, areas where there were 3 or more homes on the 100-year list in, a certain vicinity.
Rather than do like a sporadic one.
Right.
Off of
What are the
whatever
monies
street.
remaining? How much money is remaining?
There was, I want to say there was, there could be $20,000
Yeah, I
in
think
that,
that's about right, because
for
I
that
think
deeper
that's.
dive.
Could we
Because it-
request the monies be held as opposed to us applying for new, and that we plan to do, this is what we plan to do?
So they may not allow it.
Okay.
They may rescind it, and then it'll go back in, it'll go,
Forcing us to reapply.
right, it'll go back into the bucket. I am not aware of, and I sit on CPC for now Planning Board, but I'm not aware of any situations where they've let people kind of,
Is there an obligation and expenditure dates tied to the funds?
so we're supposed to be spending the money within 2 to 3 years.
Obligate or expend?
to expend it,
Okay.
you know, and we
So we're
we
coming up to
certainly
that.
haven't, you know, we've
And when's,
kind of
when's
come up to
time's
our
up for us?
deadline.
Is that, how close is
Which
that?
might be, March, I think, is what
So
you
we won't
think,
be able
right?
to put anything together anyways.
There's no obligation date, though, it's just
Yeah.
expenditure dates.
Mm,
I know that work for the Fed, and we have to obligate within 12 months and expend within 36.
Right, no, it's certainly nothing like that. We have, you know, the monies are encumbered on, under a line item for us to do a certain project. This application predated, I think David Spitz was still here when,
David was still here.
and he was the one that I
because-
think had done the last application for
Right,
these funds.
Right, and it was as I recall, it was a phase 1 and phase 2.
Mhm.
And then we kind of decided not to do phase 2 right away.
So what did, my first
You came
knowledge
in
of
right
it,
at about the time.
so it was probably we had already gotten it because I was on the board in June of 16, January, and we already had the money.
Yeah,
It was predated that.
yes, it did.
So January of 17 was when Greg stepped down as chair, and I went in for an update for CPC during my first year as chairperson, and I did not know that there was a second round of money, and was asked about the second round of money and went, no idea what you're talking about. So, because we went in with the updated list, and we had the 4 volumes set, and everybody was thrilled with it, to see, you know, kind of literally the volumes of work that were done with that money that had, I think, originally been issued back in 2008. So this second round has kind of
I think we have to have a better plan of what we
been
want.
sitting there.
Yeah, it
I
doesn't
think
look
it
good when you
also
give up
may
the
be
money.
better.
No.
I mean, I think if we could clean up the list,
Mhm.
that would be very helpful, both for us and for the
Applicants,
Homeowners.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But then I think, you know, if we had to go for something totally different, and as you say, maybe we could do that ourselves if we each took 100 houses or something.
Yeah, it doesn't take that long. You go on
Yes,
the
that's
site
right,
and you can
to go
just,
We may be
through
able to.
property, like, it's
Yeah.
an afternoon kind of thing,
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
But, you know, I think there are some other things we've talked about doing, like maybe making some of the requirements for having a property in a historic district, what you need to know, just like a fact sheet, or
Mhm.
just putting something
Like a one-page
together.
thing as opposed to
Yeah.
All on
Yeah.
one
35
page.
pages.
That was a great idea.
That's
Bullet points.
understandable,
like
yeah.
a reference
what you're looking
card,
for.
yeah, card, yep.
Yeah, you need to identify bullet
And-
points for
and
the owners and
maybe-
people.
And just
like
mail them out to
resource.
the people that have the 100-year
Yeah.
homes.
And resources would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, these are these companies that make windows that would fit, you know, what you need to be looking at, or,
Can we do that?
can we do that?
Yeah, can we recommend or give them company names?
I think as examples,
So I think we can, as long as we're not, you know,
we're not,
directing
You
it
have to
to
give
one
more than
particular.
one. You
advertising
have to
them.
give it,
Right.
yeah.
Right, you know, because we have, certainly in our guidelines, we have some examples.
Mhm. A lot of towns do.
So,
So maybe like the frequently asked questions too that
Yeah,
come up for
yeah,
homeowners because, I mean, I'm assuming some of them don't know, like this gentleman that was here this evening, you know, just assumed he was putting on a new roof, he could just put on a new roof.
Well, and just think
Yeah.
about, had the people who were doing the building on Main Street across the street, where they wanted to do the convenience
Mhm.
store. I mean, yes, they came to us early on, but not before they had an architect do the plan that didn't.
I know, and they had to keep coming back, I
Yes,
felt
they
bad
came
for
back,
them, I
what,
mean,
5
yeah,
times or something?
so.
So I think if people knew ahead of time,
Mhm.
that might
Mhm.
be.
so our
helpful.
guidelines are out there, though. So,
well,
They are, but
okay.
people
But
don't know
I do like
how
the
to look.
mailer cheat sheet, you know, why you being sent this letter, who we are, and just 10 bullet points, 10 things you should know about the Historical Commission
so
in Harwich.
this sounds like a subcommittee. Who
Yeah.
wants to?
I got it. I already have a I was working on one anyway, so I can take it.
You're on.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yay.
so you're assigned.
I'll help.
I'll give you my first draft and you can
Okay.
take it from there.
So here's, as far as brainstorming for This year, there were, as you know, not a lot of CPC projects that came forward for historic funds. It was strictly Brooks Academy Museum. That being said, I suspect Brooks Academy Museum will be coming back looking for significantly more funds in the future. And I've said it before, it with Brooks Library are the bookends
Oh, gosh, yes.
for us, they really are. So I would say perhaps our discussion from kind of the current CPA funds, maybe we should set up a subcommittee for people to brainstorm on if there are any projects that we would like to seek funding for projects that we can't do that would require some CPA funds. One of the categories is historic preservation money, and we are, as a community, required to spend 10% of the CPA funds on historic preservation items. So,
Like, we could do signage if we wanted.
I think, I've lived in Harwich about 25 years, and a problem I have is when I drive through the historical district, it has, other than your buildings, the municipality has not invested within its district. I don't see sidewalks, I don't see lighting, I don't see anything the town municipality is investing, yet it requires all the property owners to invest. So it's sort of like we're pointing our finger, but we're not doing anything ourselves to increase that historical value, like streetlights. I go through different communities, and I do a lot of work in Lexington and Concord and Princeton, New Jersey, and they really take time about their lighting and the electrical and all the services that come in through that. It's just not the buildings that make that district,
so there is
Harwich, Center
the
Initiative.
Harwich Center Initiative.
And I was at that meeting, there was probably 60 people.
I was gonna say, I heard it was good turnout.
It was a great turnout. The biggest thing is safety, sidewalks, access, but what comes with that is just creating sidewalks, ADA compliancy. It gets expensive,
The infrastructure.
complicated,
Of
we
course it
just
is.
kind of run out of room.
Sure.
Anything can be done,
Sure.
but it is a challenge to
But-
do that.
But also trees and planting and stuff like that in the public way.
There's a couple of renderings that show trees and people walking around, and
Sure.
next to Ruggies filled in with 3 buildings.
Sure.
So it was very exciting, the conversation, but we just gotta figure out, there's a lot still to do, but I
Well,
just,
Yeah, and when we did the whole library thing a couple of years ago, I mean, that was a big brouhaha.
right, yeah.
And I think, the plan, I'm so glad that it's done now, because people can look at it and say, wow, and all that effort that went into that, and all the planning time and the loads of discussion time. I mean, we got a beautiful library and a beautiful building that is one of the main things you see. And so it should be much easier for Brooks Academy to get funding to do that.
But it's
But-
between the library and Brooks Academy.
Yes, it
That's
is.
like
But-
missing
But I
something.
was just gonna say about the landscaping, that was like the last thing, I mean, that just went right off the table, because, I mean, it was just something nobody wanted to
It's sort of-
fund.
it's
It
sort
was,
of-
Well,
Landscaping is the
something's
shortest dog
happening.
that makes the biggest
yeah,
impact.
yes.
So would the board be interested in setting up a subcommittee to kind of talk about I think it's along with what it's not contradicting what they're doing, it's kind of going alongside with what the Harwich Center Initiative is trying to do. Perhaps there are things that we would like to suggest for us to do, and maybe it's as simple as adding some signage
And
ourselves.
And should we have a liaison, one of us, at the meeting, they would like that.
Yes.
Someone there.
Someone there. I mean, Greg is there, but, it's, he has a wealth of knowledge
So,
for them, but I think they want someone from the commission to be there.
A current member.
So that would be great. We didn't really kind of agenda anything like that at this point.
Why, yeah.
So, but yes,
Are they having monthly meetings, Brendan, do you know?
I'm not sure when the next one is.
Okay.
I'm
They're a
not either.
newly formed committee also.
I'm not either. I haven't heard of one since. I had a CBC
haven't
meeting that
either.
night, so I was back and forth.
Dan Wolf is heading it up now,
Yep.
so,
Oh, and he's good.
yeah.
He's great.
And Paul was doing it beforehand, Paul Doan.
Yep.
So, Or Paul talked him into doing it. That's the real story.
So, do people want to sit on perhaps a subcommittee and talk about some CPC issues?
Sure.
Some things that you
I would
can,
do that.
We could have like a work session to do something like that.
okay. So the three of you? All right. My only comment is meetings have to be agended
Mm-hmm.
and posted like our regular meetings do.
Okay.
I think it'd be great to kind of get something started. They're just,
Sure.
we really are only meeting once a month, and Jean, you had talked about 2 years ago about the map, which I
Map, yeah.
still go back to the
Yeah.
map that I loved.
And we could
So-
set the agenda at that meeting for what we want to talk about.
Mhm.
So all the ideas we might have had with, sending out a mailer or requesting funds for, more research and stuff like that.
I mean, even if it's as simple as brainstorming some things that you think we as a board should be focusing on for the Harwich Center District. Maybe it's new lighting, maybe it's new. Maybe it's some
Well, that's true. It
signage.
would be nice to be able to provide that committee with something that we've all agreed upon.
Right.
That these are things that we think would.
They would love that because
Yeah.
they're, not saying they're all over the place, there's a lot of items that they're talking
Mhm.
about, but it really comes back to safety, signage. I heard a lot of that. Parking issues if it ever grew in more
Mhm.
businesses, and how to get business back into the center.
Well, and signage is one of those things, I mean, it's really hard sometimes with the merchants, but I think you can use signage as such a unification of a town or a village. I mean, it doesn't have to look exactly alike, but it's a brand in and of itself. If
It
you
is, yeah.
can some sort of basic sign design and
Yeah.
colors.
It's
or-
great. I have one right across the street from my house, and I love it. So I just turn into
Yeah.
my driveway, it's right there.
Yeah.
It's great to see, so.
Yeah.
So, all right, then I will leave it to the three of you to
The subcommittee.
get started.
Okay.
Next item we had on our agenda were the revisions to the applications.
I had one question,
Yes.
or actually a comment. So, where you crossed it out in
Mm-hmm.
red, okay. People reading this gonna know what an impertinence is? I mean, is that a word we could change or make simpler?
Sure.
That's a good point.
Come up with a. I don't know why we struck under C on the non-applicability. I don't know why we struck design, but
Ordinary maintenance,
We
repairs,
talked
or
about,
replacement, alterations or damage to or-
I remember that we talked about materials being the word we wanted to use, but I don't remember what the rationale was for striking that either.
I mean, I will say honestly, generally, I like the application and certificate form much better than what we currently have. I think we've added enough items that,
Enough to overwhelm them
I think they
either.
got rid of design because it's ordinary maintenance.
mm-hmm,
So,
oh, I think you're right.
I think a design, it
I
just
think you're
wouldn't
right.
go, yeah.
Maintenance is more your materials. and-
Yeah.
So you're gonna get rid of appertuance twice that it's in there? Is that what you're gonna do?
Yeah, I see
Okay.
that. I circled it once and,
Yeah,
Someone likes that word.
yeah. Sounds very legal, and it doesn't, to me, for the person who's gonna read this, it doesn't necessarily sound like it would be a logical word.
It made sense to get rid of the shed accessory structure because then you just think it's just shed where there's other items.
Yeah, because,
That
I mean,
falls,
like,
so
and then we
accessory.
had the boathouse, right? The
Right.
boathouse, the,
And I was literally
Chicken coop?
thinking that that
Yeah.
was the old house versus the new house, and it's the guest house. But okay,
that must be a huge.
You were
piece of
surprised.
Property, yeah.
it is right on the river,
Riverside, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty over there.
on Herring River. Okay, any comments on kind of this first one, which is the application and certificate form,
Looks great.
other than the appurtenances?
Looks good.
Okay, and how about the application for notice of intent? Is there anything else we'd like to see on this?
We don't need to define in part, meaning intent to demolish in whole or in part. Remember one time it was if you do more than 50%, and that was just, that never
That's-
existed.
That's not in our bylaw strictly says
Right.
any partial demolition, and that has, since I've been on the board, has included something as simple as cutting an interior doorway for a garage that was gonna be attached. So, it includes any demolition.
So in part covers that, okay.
Does our reach go to the interior of the structure, not visible by the general public?
So when it comes to the 100-year list and a demolition, it's any demolition, any partial demolition of a building of 100 years of age or older. So any demolition.
So if they wanted to do kitchen renovations within the building, but didn't, and weren't changing any windows or doors, we still get involved?
Technically, it is considered a demolition
Wow.
if they're removing something.
Wow.
It's not that specific to interior or exterior.
I wonder if everyone knows that.
Would that
I'm
be
just
flagged
curious
with the
because-
building
Yeah.
department catch that?
Building, usually they do.
Yeah.
If you apply for a permit.
Well, of course.
That would be the.
Therein lies the rub, right?
There
We
it
don't
is,
usually
right
s-
there.
I don't know that we've ever.
I've
have
I
we
don't
ever
think we've
seen
seen
any
it.
I've never seen
interior
that.
one, I'm just trying to think. I don't think
I've
we've
never seen
ever
that.
seen an interior.
So we did one for, and it may not have been an interior, it ended up being a cut that was going to be on the interior. It was on the 100-year list, and they were adding a room to the side of the house, and they were cutting a hole to make a door,
Right,
and they had to come before us. Even though they weren't doing any demolition to attach,
Because there's nothing to do
cutting
with
the
what you
door.
see from the street, it's protecting the whole structure. That's the whole
Correct.
idea.
yeah.
correct. The difference between the certificate of appropriateness where we're looking at streetscape and the demolition where it's the
Yeah.
structure itself.
What happens in these cases when they raise the building?
So they come
And-
before us.
And there's so much deteriorated structure. They don't see that till they raise the building. I'm assuming 80% is
That-
gone.
That's a function over aesthetics, right? That's something that's gonna last.
Well, that's making
that
it stable,
structure.
so it will last.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of foundations
Yeah,
in
I'm
the
sure,
last
yeah.
couple of years.
I'll be here in the next couple, 3
Yeah.
years.
We've had a few of those that were just to replace, but raising and replacing.
Yeah.
We've had people put the brick facade back on when they've come in for the demo permit.
Yeah, it's nice to see the ones where they've really come in and worked
Yeah.
with us on it and what they've done.
The yellow house, the yellow Captain's Row house,
Oh, yes.
just beautiful.
That is just.
She's done a
and
fantastic
that-
job.
That's really
That went
nice.
so fast, too.
That's very nice.
Yeah, I can't wait for it to open.
Are we okay with the applications?
Yeah.
Yes.
They look good.
So we can give the building department the okay to start using those.
Mhm.
So we'll do that.
Oh, did we, I think we did though.
So,
Were we going to, can I ask one more question?
yes.
When we had, was it Ray Chesney last fall?
Mhm.
We asked, because of the Forest Street property, I think, was that we were gonna ask them to flag the card?
Right.
Should that be on this one
That-
somewhere,
Maybe
or?
that is a good idea.
You say for the forestry property flag,
The forest, so when the Forest Street house got essentially demoed,
it disappeared.
when it wasn't supposed to,
Mm.
Sad.
the building inspector came in and said that if we requested, they could do a post-demo inspection before issuing a building permit. So I'll revisit that. I can,
Okay.
if it's the board's pleasure, I can write a letter to Ray on our behalf and ask or
He
or
said he'd be
confirm
more
that
than happy
that's.
to, it's just, he needs to be notified. Is
Right,
that,
ask and confirm that that actually happens.
And do we know if a fine was,
I believe a fine was issued on that home. Zoning Board of Appeals took exception to it as well because made the same representations to us and them. So I believe there was one, I'm not sure what it was though.
Okay.
The other item on our list is the demo delay bylaw.
Mhm.
I'm happy to still continue discussions if anybody has some comments or some things to raise. I do know Bob Bradley and Bob Doan were still interested in talking about that as well. So
Okay.
I think we'll continue discussions tonight and continue them in the future
Mhm.
till we get a good draft in place.
And there is a workshop on that at the end of March, I think. Did
Is there?
Elaine
Yes.
send out
Mhm.
something on that? I was just looking for the
Yeah, March
date.
28th, I
can't-
think.
Is it the
Was
28th?
that recently?
Yeah.
It's hard though, because it's at like,
Yeah.
I don't remember
Well,
seeing
she
that.
sent it out
Or
maybe a
something
week or
like
so
that.
ago.
I don't
For
remember
reason I
seeing
can't
that.
find
I
it.
so.
think I'm going to that, so.
it's probably
Yeah,
easier
I
for you
think
to
I
go.
would like to go. It's just before we go away, so I don't know if I'm gonna
I'll
get
check
there or
right
not.
now. I think I have it in there, March 28th.
By all means, I do not recall seeing that email, so
Yeah,
will
if I
check
can
with them
find it,
tomorrow.
I'll send it to you.
It's
Please.
it's 9 AM, March 28th.
Yeah.
and where
In
is it?
Barnstable.
It's in Barnstable
Oh.
at the Cape Cod Commissioners Ocean Conference Room,
Oh,
3225 Main Street.
okay.
It's
I was gonna-
gonna be rather registered.
I was gonna attend it if
Don't they out there?
my wife hasn't planned a trip out to San Diego
Oh,
on anniversary.
Nice. Great place.
I'll definitely attend that, so.
All right, great.
And I will
that's a,
try to, if I can make that work, I think that would be good. They have good programs when they do, and
They
they
do.
bring in people from all over the Cape, and this may be a greater Massachusetts one, I don't remember. But it's nice to hear what's going on in other towns.
Does anybody have anything we want to talk about on the demo delay bylaw for today? Did we get a revised? There was a revision that I
I
saw.
don't I must not be
didn't
getting
see that.
everything. You got one?
I don't.
You okay. I thought it was just me.
Well, it was on the last, it was on the minute, well,
I have something from last time, I think.
I thought we had a revised, didn't I?
I have something from last month, but I didn't
But I
see
That was
thought
like
anything
a-
in this packet.
We had marked it up. And I thought we had asked, I know I had asked Elena, I know she did it, maybe it didn't get attached to the agendas. Sorry, folks. I'll make sure it gets circulated to you then. What we had done was we had taken Brookline's and put in the revisions.
Is this it?
Do you have it? I think
Well,
you
I
do.
think
Is that what, I think that's what I have too. It's like a one page.
But I think it's from last time, right?
Yeah, I don't think this has been
Yeah.
updated since, at least I don't think so.
Because it wasn't in my that I just pulled out last month's package to look at something else.
Oh, maybe this is the one that Gail gave us.
I think so. so?
versus,
Okay.
Elaine did do a markup, and I thought it was in the packet, but maybe I'm losing my mind. I will circulate one. The goal, I think, for the most part, was to try and have the demo delays live or die with the owner,
Yes.
correct? So that if an owner gets a,
It's an approval.
gets an approval and then chooses to sell the house or the property, that the new owners would have to come back
Revisit it.
for new approvals.
Right.
So I think that was the last piece that we had talked about on it, for the most part.
I wasn't at that meeting, but what about a say in, I know this came up before, someone presenting what they were going to do and having a say in that. So rather, I mean, right now our options are yes or no. And there's
Our
no,
options are yes or no.
they could always
There-
come back and suggest something, but we can't force them to do so.
There is a provision in our bylaw that says we can come to an agreement,
Yeah,
but agreements are always two-sided. So the way we've seen it work in the past is that we institute the demo delay, and then if somebody doesn't want to wait through the demo delay, then they'll work with us. It doesn't always work that way. Some people are more than happy to wait out the demo delay to.
right, I've seen that before.
And I haven't seen one that has required the, our approval on a replacement.
Right.
We could certainly ask council.
Then we have to set precedent moving forward. It'd be difficult. It'd be a challenge.
So we'd have to ask council if that's something, because too much restriction rises to the level of a taking. So that would be the concern that I would have myself.
But if they
just looking at
came
it.
on their own and made a suggestion, then we could lift the,
So we can, and that
it'd be up
is,
to them to do their due diligence.
That's
and come
a-
back.
that's a provision in our rules right now. I mean, we certainly, if any applicant, if they don't want to go through the demo delay and they want to work with us, we certainly have the ability to come to an agreement with them on what would be there in its place. Our bylaw allows it, the provision's there.
Yeah, I did that for my house.
So, some people are willing to do it, and others
They'll just wait out the delay and.
Others are willing to sit out the delay. We've
It was-
certainly had people in the last 2 years that have just said, just institute the delay. For some it was, I'm not gonna get to the work for a year anyway. For others, it was, I wanna knock the house down, so I'm gonna knock it down
But for us,
regardless, and
yeah.
if I have to wait a year, I wait a year.
Yeah, you can't stop that person. Or if they just knew it was out there, meaning if you were to stay on the same footprint, add the dormers, but keep the roof pitch lines all the same, like, for example, Forest Street, those roof pitches are all completely different. It would have been nice to have some input to keep some of the lines.
Well, we were told in that application that it was only going to be
Right. But if someone knew and they could come to that, not just so much as knock it down and build something that looks old, because once you do that, code steps in and it changes the whole design.
exactly.
But staying with your 7-foot-high ceilings and the charm of the homes would be tough.
When you build new, you can't do that.
Was that?
When you build new, you can't do that.
I will see that the revised 131 gets recirculated. I know,
Great.
what it was the Brookline, revisions to theirs, which, there were some that were included and some that weren't in what Gail had originally given us. And Elaine had gone in and kind of made the additional changes so that we could track them and see what they were. So I'll make sure those get circulated, and I think the next step, excuse me, the next step is revising ours accordingly. Anything else? Excuse me?
It's been an adventure.
Any briefings and reports from board members?
Nothing.
I will make the update report to CPC for March on what's existing. If you folks, excuse me, if you folks start to meet, let me know. We'll go from there.
If you want to share that 100-year list, we could start picking away at,
So we have it up here in the building department.
okay.
It is, I'm not sure if they have a printed 4-volume set, because it was
Oh my
4
gosh.
very large volumes.
So it's
I
not
think
just
they
a
do.
list
I
of-
think they have one here and one at the library. I
Okay,
think there were like 3 or 4 sets printed. I think one is here.
I know we
One's at
ended
the
up giving one
library.
to CPC, because they had asked for,
Yeah.
the copy that we brought with them.
So there should be one somewhere in the building, I would think.
But if nothing else, I mean, we could probably start by street names or
Mhm.
whatever was to set up into 4 volumes, so, great.
I only knew I was supposed to be here because I went in and saw Elaine on some other matter.
And you didn't get an email?
And I picked up the packet, and she said, "You're gonna be there?" And I goes, "When?" And she said, "Tomorrow." And I goes, "Okay."
You didn't know?
I didn't know. Is there some way that someone can tell me?
We will make sure that you
Give me a
get,
head start, not just a day, because I would not have been here if I didn't go into the town hall yesterday.
You just
Angela,
gotta get on the email chain.
I will make sure you're on the email list.
Thank you.
Should have been, my apologies for that
No,
not
it's okay.
having happened. We generally meet the 3rd Wednesday of every month, at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
So it's pretty much set in stone for that meeting.
Sometimes a member has to recuse himself because of a conflict of interest, and I'll have to be there for that one seating, or someone will have to be there for that
So-
one seating.
For us, you can, we traditionally have had our alternates stay through the meetings,
Okay.
and when you're here, you can vote.
Okay,
So,
so it's the third Thursday, third Wednesday?
3rd Wednesday of every month,
Okay.
6 PM. We generally meet here unless there's a kind of an extenuating circumstance where we'll meet in the
Mhm.
small hearing room.
Okay, I'll get them in my calendar, get them in my computer.
We'll make sure
It'll all
that,
change.
It all changed.
don't say that.
No.
So I'll make sure that you get on the list. We've, our administrative assistant, executive assistant has been out of the office a bit ill, so we've, Elaine has stepped in and done a lot of it. So we may have missed some emails along the way. But we do now, I think, have a full board, which is
Elaine
very
does,
exciting.
Elaine does send me this stuff, I get her emails,
All right.
but I didn't know I was supposed to be here.
You certainly don't have to as an alternate.
Yeah.
What I would like to start doing is just, when the initial emails come out with the packets, just confirm if you can be here
Oh,
or
sure.
not, just so that we know that we have a quorum.
Sure.
Great idea.
Yeah,
We
'cause you-
shouldn't have any quorum issues anymore. We did for a while, but we now have a full board, so,
Yes.
so,
Very tiny board for a while.
yes, we had a very small board for a while, but we do not anymore. It's very exciting.
It's
So-
nice to be at a meeting, even though you're not hearing it, only because we talked about something that was a previous meeting that I couldn't talk about or vote on because I didn't know what you talked about. You know, so, if I was just observing the meeting and I had to sit in the next meeting because it got postponed to
Mhm.
the next meeting, then I could clearly talk about it, because I would have heard it.
So we are good to go then. Anything else?
No, I'm good.
Motion to adjourn?
So
Motion to
moved.
adjourn.
Seconded.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
We are adjourned.